Nancy Guthrie is now entering another critical phase, and the clock may be working against investigators.
Her medication is still on the counter, 76 days, and the pills Nancy Guthrie takes every morning to keep her heart beating are sitting exactly where she left them. Nobody took them. Nobody grabbed them on the way out. 5 seconds. That is all it would have taken. 5 seconds to pick up the medication that an 84-year-old woman with a pacemaker needs to survive. They left it, and that one detail, that one decision, or that one failure may tell you more about what happened to Nancy Guthrie than everything the FBI has released in 76 days combined. Because if the plan was to keep her alive, if this was a ransom, if the intention was to hold her for a day or two and negotiate and collect and release her, you take the medication, you grab it. You do not leave behind the thing that keeps your hostage breathing, not unless you already know she does not need it anymore. That is the question I have not been able to let go of, and I am going to walk you through it tonight. Not because I want to, because I have to. Because what Ashley Banfield said on Drop Dead Serious, what Brian Enton reported from the ground in Tucson, what a detective told him about the kidnapper's plan falling apart, what Nancy Grace said about murder, what Cece Moore said about the DNA, and what Dr. Ann Burgess said about what went wrong inside that house. All of it points at the same answer. And the answer is in the medication that is still sitting on Nancy Guthrie's kitchen counter. Stay with me, because what I am about to show you is hard to hear. But the family needs people to hear it. And the person who knows where Nancy is needs to know that the clock has already run out on the lie they have been telling themselves. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because we are covering this case until the end. And the end may not be what anyone expected. I want to ask you something before we go any further, and I want you to answer it honestly in your own head. Think about your mother or your grandmother. Think about the woman in your family who takes medication every morning, the one with the pill organizer on the kitchen counter, the blood pressure pills, the heart medication, the blood thinners, the little white pill she takes at 7 a.m. that her doctor told her she cannot miss. Now imagine someone takes her from her bed at 2 a.m. No medication, no medical equipment, no doctor, no hospital, just darkness and terror and a stranger's hands. How long does she survive? Not weeks, not months, hours, maybe a day, maybe less. That is the reality of the Nancy Guthrie case, and nobody wants to say it out loud. So I am going to say it, because the medical evidence, the expert analysis, and the complete absence of proof of life in 76 days are all telling the same story. Nancy Guthrie had a pacemaker, not as a precaution, not as a nice to have, a pacemaker keeping her heart in rhythm because her heart could not do it on its own. An electrical device implanted under the skin of her chest, sending signals to her heart muscle, telling it when to beat, how fast, how steady. At 1:47 a.m. on February 1st, a masked man appeared on her doorbell camera. By 2:28 a.m., 41 minutes later, Nancy's pacemaker disconnected from the monitoring app on her phone. 41 minutes. And then the device that was keeping her alive stopped transmitting. There are two explanations for that disconnection. The first is distance. Bluetooth has a range of approximately 30 feet. If Nancy was moved out of range of her phone, the pacemaker would lose its connection. That is the explanation that assumes she was still alive when she left the house. The second explanation is the one that nobody wants to say. A pacemaker stops transmitting when the heart stops. And a sleep expert who appeared on Nancy Grace's program said something that every person watching this needs to hear. The research shows that elderly people, even those without heart conditions, are at high risk of cardiac events when violently woken from deep sleep. The adrenaline surge, the heart rate spike, the blood pressure explosion, the cortisol dump. For a young person, that is uncomfortable. For an 84-year-old woman with a pacemaker, that surge can be fatal. Now think about what happened between 1:47 and 2:28. Someone entered Nancy's home. Someone moved through the darkness. Nancy was asleep. Her hearing aids were out. She was in complete silence. She had no warning, no time to prepare, no way to hear the footsteps coming down her hallway. And then whatever happened next was violent enough to leave blood on the porch. Blood confirmed as Nancy. Nancy's. Blood that forensic experts say came from her face, her nose, or her mouth from a strike hard enough to cause rapid bleeding. An 84-year-old woman, pacemaker, ripped from sleep, struck in the face, in complete darkness, in the hands of a stranger. Could your mother's heart survive that, Detective? Brian Martin told Brian Enton something that has stayed with me since the moment I heard it. He said, "It scares me to think that somebody took Ms. Guthrie and she had some sort of medical event when it was happening, because obviously it would be an incredibly stressful situation and very taxing on somebody. A medical event, a heart attack, a cardiac arrest, a stroke, any one of those could have happened in the first minutes. In the house, on the porch, in the vehicle, before the kidnapper even reached wherever they were going." And then Martin said something else. He said, "The kidnappers underestimated her health." Underestimated, meaning they did not plan for this. They thought they could grab an 84-year-old woman, hold her for a day, collect the ransom, and drop her off. Simple, easy, quick money. But they did not plan for a pacemaker. They did not plan for an 84-year-old heart under extreme stress. They did not plan for what happens when a terrified elderly woman's body shuts down in your hands. And Martin said, when things went wrong, her body was no longer of value. Let that sit with you. Her body was no longer of value, meaning she was no longer a hostage. She was a problem. You cannot negotiate ransom for a dead woman. You cannot send proof of life for someone who is not alive. All you can do is hide her and hope nobody finds her. And Ashley Banfield has been saying the same thing on Drop Dead Serious. She said, "It is possible that Nancy was gone before they even got her out of that house." Gone. Before she left the house, before the vehicle, before the destination, gone on the porch, gone in the hallway, gone the moment her heart could not take what was being done to her. Now I need to show you why the ransom notes confirm this. Because the ransom notes are not evidence of a living hostage. They are evidence of the opposite. Multiple notes have been sent, not to the Guthrie family, to media outlets, TMZ television stations, public channels, not private communications to the family, public demands broadcast to the world. That is not normal. Retired FBI agents have said it. Sending ransom demands to media instead of the family is not how real kidnappings work. Real kidnappers contact the family directly, privately. They offer proof of life. They negotiate in silence, because silence is how you get paid. Loud is how you get caught. And here is what none of the ransom notes have ever included. Not one. In 76 days, proof of life. No photograph of Nancy holding a newspaper with a date. No video of Nancy speaking a word the family gave them. No audio of her voice. No answer to a question only Nancy would know. Nothing. Zero in 76 days. If you are holding a hostage for ransom, proof of life is the most powerful tool you have. It is the thing that makes the family pay. It is the thing that keeps law enforcement treating you as a kidnapper instead of a murderer. Every person who has ever watched a single crime documentary knows this, and nobody has sent it because nobody can. The latest notes, received by TMZ on April 6th, came from the same person who has been writing since February. One note demands half a Bitcoin to reveal information. The next note, sent minutes later, says, "I saw her alive with them in the state of Sonora, Mexico." But the same sender also says Nancy is dead and wants money to reveal where she is buried. She is alive in Mexico. She is dead and buried. Both claims, same sender, minutes apart, both cannot be true. Jennifer Coffindaffer, retired FBI, told Newsweek she does not believe the sender has real information. Her logic is clean. If this person genuinely knew who the kidnapper was, they would claim the $1.2 million reward through official channels. They would not demand $70,000 in Bitcoin from a media company. The notes are not from the kidnapper. They may be from someone who heard something. They may be from an opportunist feeding on a family's pain, or they may be from someone who knows Nancy is dead and is trying to monetize that knowledge without exposing themselves. But whatever they are not proof of life. And the absence of proof of life across 76 days, across multiple senders, across every note that has ever been written about this case, that absence is evidence. It is evidence that nobody who has contacted the family or the media has ever been able to prove that Nancy Guthrie is breathing. Now the medication clock, because even if Nancy survived the initial abduction, even if her heart held during the violence and the terror and the adrenaline, the medication problem is a countdown that started the moment she left that house. Nancy takes daily medication. The family has not disclosed the exact prescriptions, but for an 84-year-old woman with a heart condition and a pacemaker, the medications almost certainly include blood thinners, blood pressure medication, and cardiac drugs that regulate heart rhythm. Missing one dose of blood pressure medication can cause a spike that leads to stroke. Missing blood thinners can cause clotting. Missing cardiac medication can cause the very arrhythmia the pacemaker is designed to prevent. And if the pacemaker itself was damaged during the abduction, if the leads were disrupted by physical force, then Nancy's heart was operating without its safety net from the moment she was taken. Hours matter. Not days, not weeks, hours. A sleep expert who appeared on Nancy Grace's program explained what happens to an elderly body under extreme stress. The adrenaline surge, the heart rate spike, the blood pressure explosion, the cortisol dump into the bloodstream. For a young, healthy person, uncomfortable but survivable. For an 84-year-old woman whose heart needs a machine to keep it beating, that surge can be the last thing her heart ever does, and the pacemaker itself. If it was damaged during the abduction, if the leads were disrupted by physical force, if the battery connection was affected by a blow, then Nancy's heart was operating without its safety net from the moment she was taken. The pacemaker is not a backup. It is the primary system. Without it, her heart reverts to whatever rhythm it can manage on its own. And for a woman who needed a pacemaker in the first place, that rhythm may not be enough. Missing one dose of blood pressure medication can cause a spike that leads to stroke. Missing blood thinners can cause clotting. Missing cardiac drugs can cause the very arrhythmia the pacemaker was designed to prevent. And all of this compounds. Each hour without medication makes the next hour more dangerous. Each hour without the pacemaker functioning properly makes the heart weaker. Each hour under stress, the stress of being held, of being moved, of being afraid, accelerates the process. It has been 76 days without medication, without medical care, without her pacemaker being monitored. At 84 years old, I am not a doctor, but I can read what the experts are saying, and what they are saying is the probability that Nancy is alive right now is extremely low, and the probability that she died in the first hours of the abduction from a cardiac event triggered by the violence of being taken is extremely high. So where is she? If Nancy died in the vehicle or in the first hours at whatever location the kidnapper took her to, then the kidnapper has had months to hide a body. And the Sonoran Desert stretches across southern Arizona into Mexico. Vast, sparse, hundreds of square miles of open terrain. A body buried in the desert decomposes rapidly in the heat. Within weeks, soft tissue is gone. Within months, only bones remain. And bones in the desert can go undiscovered for years. The kidnapper does not need a complex plan. A shovel, a vehicle, an hour of driving. That is all it takes. But here is what Cece Moore said, and this is the part that should terrify the person who buried her. If Nancy's body is found even months later, that gives investigators another opportunity, another crime scene, another chance to identify the person who took her. Some finding Nancy, even deceased, breaks this case open, because wherever she is, that location is the second crime scene, and the second crime scene is where the kidnapper made mistakes they did not make at the house. DNA on the clothing, fibers from a vehicle, tire impressions in the soil, tool marks from a shovel, the things you forget to clean when you are panicking at 3 a.m. in the desert with a body you did not plan to have. And now I need to say what Nancy Grace said, because she said it clearly, and she said it on Sean Hannity's podcast where millions of people heard it. I want them to get the death penalty. There is no other choice. The hounds of hell will chase those kidnappers until they are caught. Under Arizona's felony murder rule is if someone dies during the commission of a kidnapping, every person involved is liable for murder. Not just the person who struck Nancy, every person. The lookout, the driver, the person who propped the doors, the person who drew the map, the person who scouted the house on January 11th and January 24th. It does not matter that they did not intend to kill her. It does not matter that her heart gave out on its own. If she died because of what they did to her, They are murderers, all of them, and Arizona has the death penalty. The person who took Nancy may have gone into that house thinking they were committing a crime they could walk away from, and they walked out carrying a body they can never walk away from. And Dr. Ann Burgess, the woman whose work inspired Mindhunter, told Brian Enton something that adds another layer entirely. She said Nancy may not have been the actual target. She suggested the abduction could be retribution, someone targeting Savannah Guthrie through her mother. What if this was never about Nancy at all? What if someone with a grudge against Savannah decided to hurt her through the person she loves most? And what if that person took Nancy without understanding that an 84-year-old woman with a pacemaker cannot survive the kind of violence a kidnapping requires? The retribution theory and the medical event theory are not separate. They are the same theory from different angles. Someone took Nancy, whether for money or for revenge, and Nancy's body could not survive what they did. And the institution that was supposed to protect her, the Pima County Sheriff's Department, is now under investigation itself. The Board of Supervisors voted unanimously to question Sheriff Chris Nanos about his management of the department. Fox News reported the lead investigator originally assigned to the Nancy Guthrie case had no homicide experience. And this week, tonight, the Sheriff's Department posted Nancy has been located on social media about a different missing Nancy without using a last name on day 76 of the most watched case in the country. The community responded with fury. One person wrote, "Okay, now you are all just being assholes on purpose." This is the department responsible for finding Nancy Guthrie, and they cannot even get the name right on a social media post. If Nancy died in the first hour, then every resource from day one should have been directed at finding a body and a burial site. Cadaver dogs, ground-penetrating radar, desert search teams, aerial surveys, the full weight of a murder investigation. Instead, the investigation spent weeks chasing ransom notes that never once included proof of life. Now I owe you the counter evidence, because fairness matters. It is possible Nancy survived the abduction. Some elderly patients tolerate extreme stress better than expected. Pacemakers are robust devices. They do not simply stop working when someone is moved. She may have had medication in her pocket. The kidnapper may have obtained medication for her. It is possible the ransom notes are real. The lack of proof of life could be a strategic decision, not evidence of death. It is possible Nancy is alive somewhere, in Mexico, in Arizona, in a location investigators have not yet searched. It is possible the FBI knows things we do not know. They have been quiet, and quiet could mean they are building something behind closed doors. All of that must be weighed, and the family has said they are still blowing on the embers of hope. Savannah returned to the Today Show on April 6th. She wore yellow. She said, "It is good to be home." But every morning she wakes up knowing 3 scenarios. Scenario 1, Nancy is alive. She is being held somewhere. The kidnapper has obtained her medication. The pacemaker is functioning. She is scared but breathing. The ransom demands are real. There is still time. This is what every person watching this hopes is true, and I hope it too. Scenario 2. Nancy died during the abduction. Her heart could not take the stress. A cardiac event in the house, on the porch, in the vehicles, killed her before the kidnapper reached their destination. The kidnapping became a murder. The kidnapper panicked, buried her in the desert, and has been hiding ever since. The ransom notes are from someone else, an opportunist who saw the case on the news and tried to profit from a family's pain. Scenario 3. Nancy died shortly after the abduction. Hours, maybe a day. The kidnapper held her briefly, but without medication, without medical care, without a functioning pacemaker, her body failed. The kidnapper realized they could not send proof of life, could not negotiate, could not complete the plan. They disposed of her body, and the ransom notes are a smokescreen designed to keep investigators looking in the wrong direction while the real evidence sits buried in the Arizona desert. Based on the medication left on the counter, the pacemaker disconnection at 2:28 a.m., the absence of proof of life in 76 days, Detective Martin's assessment that the kidnappers underestimated her health, and the ransom notes contradicting themselves, scenario 2 or 3 is most likely. Tell me in the comments, scenario 1, 2, or 3, and tell me why. Because the answer determines whether investigators should be searching for a living woman or searching for a burial site. And ask yourself the what ifs. What if Nancy's body is found in the desert within 50 miles of the Catalina foothills? What if the forensic examination shows no signs of physical trauma, just a heart that stopped? What if the cause of death is cardiac arrest brought on by the stress of the abduction, and the kidnapper never laid a hand on her after the initial strike? What if the bite flashlight still has saliva on it? What if that saliva matches someone in a DNA database? What if Cece Moore uploads the profile and has a family tree within weeks, her word weeks, and an investigator knocks on a door nobody expected? What if the new deconvolution software separates the mixed DNA from the crime scene and produces a usable profile? What if the FBI already has a name and is building a case in silence? What if the ransom note writer is not the kidnapper at all, but someone who learned about the crime through a connection and is trying to profit from it? What if the notes are a distraction keeping investigators focused on Bitcoin wallets and Sonora, Mexico, while the real evidence sits in the desert 20 miles from Nancy's house? What if someone watching this video right now knows exactly where Nancy Guthrie is? What if they have been carrying that weight for 76 days? Afraid to call, afraid of the person they know, afraid of what it means? What if the only thing standing between them and $1.2 million, anonymous, cash, no name required, is a single phone call? What if the person who buried Nancy has been driving past the site to make sure nothing has changed? What if they have been Googling, how long does it take for a body to decompose in the desert on a phone the FBI can subpoena? What if the person sleeping next to them has noticed the drinking, the paranoia, the way they flinch every time a Nancy Guthrie update appears on the news? Because fear has an expiration date. And the weight of carrying a dead woman's location in your head for 76 days does not get lighter. It only gets heavier. Every single day, every mother watching this, think about the woman who raised you, the pills on her counter, the pacemaker, the hearing aids, the routine that keeps her alive. Nancy Guthrie was born Nancy Long in Fort Wright, Kentucky on January 27, 1942. She married Charles Guthrie. They moved to Tucson in the early 1970s. Charles died in 1988 on a mining exploration trip in Mexico. He was 49 years old. Nancy was 46. A single mother with 3 children. She stayed in that house, the same house, for over 50 years. She did not leave when grief told her to. She did not sell when loneliness crept in. She stayed because it was her home, and because her children needed a home, and because she was the kind of woman who does not run from hard things. She worked at the University of Arizona. She saved the Poison Information Center by gathering 20,000 signatures before the internet existed. A colleague called her a quiet leader who was so effective without ever working at it. She watched church virtually every Sunday morning, the same Sunday morning routine that alerted the family she was missing when she did not appear on February 1st. She hosted dinner every Saturday night. She fed the javelinas that ate her plants because she thought they were funny. She took an Uber to her daughter Annie's house because she did not want to be a burden. Savannah called her our shining light. Our matriarch, she is all we have. And the medication she takes to stay alive is still sitting on her kitchen counter exactly where she left it 76 days ago. Someone knows where she is. Someone drove the vehicle. Someone helped carry her. Someone chose the location, and someone has been living with that weight every single day since February 1st. And here is the truth they need to hear. The weight does not get lighter. It gets heavier every day. Every news update, every time Cece Moore says will, every time Nancy Grace says death penalty, every time Ashley Banfield's sources reveal another detail. The net gets tighter, the technology gets closer, and the medication on the counter keeps telling the same story. Nobody planned to keep her alive, and the person who left that medication behind knows exactly what that means. The first person who talks gets the cooperation agreement, a ceasatine. The second person gets Arizona's death penalty. $1.2 million cash. Anonymous, no name required, because Jennifer Coffin Daffer confirmed this was not a one-person job. The planning, the scouting on January 11th and January 24th, the disabled cameras, the prop doors, the 41 minutes inside the house, the coordination required to carry an 84-year-old woman out of her home without being seen by a single neighbor. That requires at least 2 people. And 2 people means 2 people who know what happened. 2 people who know whether Nancy died in the house, in the vehicle, or in the desert. 2 people who have been living with that knowledge for 76 days. 2 people whose relationship is the fracture point of this entire case. Because fear makes people quiet, but fear also makes people drink, makes them argue, makes them check the news obsessively, makes them drive past a location to make sure nothing has changed, makes them snap at the people closest to them because the weight of what they did is crushing them from the inside out. Someone in Tucson knows these people. Someone has watched them change since February. The drinking, the paranoia, the silence, the weight. And CeCe Moore said something about finding Nancy that every person watching this needs to hear. She said,
convolution is a huge part of forensic DNA analysis. And there have been, efforts to deconvolute on the STR side for decades. And they have a lot of software packages that they can work with. But we've only been using SNP testing for forensic samples since around 2018. And that means that it is lagging behind. It wouldn't be able to use the same types of software packages.
Tool marks, the things you forget to clean when you are panicking at 3 a.m. in the desert with a body you did not plan to have. Moore also said investigators should go back to Nancy's house and swab the Byte flashlight, the one the suspect held in his mouth during the doorbell footage. Saliva contains DNA, single contributor DNA, clean, no mixture problems, no deconvolution required. Moore called it the most likely source of the suspect's DNA that may have been missed. And she said the word that should keep the kidnapper awake every night. She said, will. Not might, not possibly, will. If they have a viable DNA profile, they will identify that DNA contributor. Will. The DNA does not care how many months have passed. The genetic genealogy does not care how careful the plan was. And the medication on the counter does not care about excuses. It has been sitting there for 76 days telling the same story. Nobody planned to keep Nancy alive. 1-800-CALL FBI 52035-149-0088 crime. Because the medication is still on the counter and the person who left it there knew exactly what that meant. Share this with your mother, share it with your daughter, share it with every woman you know who has an elderly parent living alone. Share this with anyone in Pima County, anyone who lives near the Catalina foothills or drives through the desert south of Tucson. Because if Nancy's body is in that desert, and the medical evidence says it almost certainly is, then someone has driven past the place where she was buried. Someone has hiked near it. Someone's dog has caught a scent they did not understand. And that person needs to make a call. Share this with anyone who works in construction, landscaping, or day labor in southern Arizona. Because the contractor angle that Ashley Banfield confirmed on day 60 is still open. The FBI is still interviewing workers. And someone on a crew saw something in January that they have not connected to the case. And share this with anyone who has been watching the person next to them change since February. The drinking, the silence, the paranoia, the way they flinch when a Nancy Guthrie update comes on the news. Because that person may be the person who buried her, and $1.2 million is waiting for whoever breaks the silence first. Because Nancy Guthrie's case is not just about one woman, it is about whether an 84-year-old mother can survive being ripped from her bed in the middle of the night by a stranger. And the medication on the counter has been answering that question for 76 days. If you have not seen our breakdown of what 4 forensic experts found in the blood on Nancy's porch, watch that next. Because the blood, the health, and the ransom notes are 3 threads that tell the same story. Nancy Guthrie may have been gone before anyone started looking, and the person who knows where she is running out of time to tell the truth before the truth finds them. Subscribe and turn on notifications. CeCe Moore said the kidnapper will be identified. The DNA is in the lab. The genetic genealogy is standing by, and the medication is still on the counter, waiting. The same way Nancy's family is waiting. The same way the FBI is waiting. The same way the person who took her is waiting for the knock on the door they know is coming. Because the medication told the truth from day one, and the truth does not expire. The information presented in this video is sourced from publicly available reporting, including Brian Enton of News Nation, Ashley Banfield's Drop Dead Serious podcast, Nancy Grace, Jennifer Coffindaffer, Cece Moore, Dr. Ann Burgess, and Detective Brian Martin. No individual has been named or implied as a suspect. This channel does not accuse any individual of any crime. All individuals are presumed innocent until proven guilty.